Imagine the softest sheets you've ever felt. Now imagine them getting even softer over time. I'm here to tell you about Boll & Branch sheets. In a recent customer survey, 96% replied that Boll & Branch sheets get softer with every wash. They're made from the rarest organic cotton and designed to get even softer over time. Try their sheets with a 30-night guarantee plus 15% off your first order with code Odyssey. So head to BOLLandbranch.com today. Exclusions apply. See site for details.
JamesAllen.com is the online destination to easily design a customized engagement ring and save up to 50% compared to traditional stores. You pick a diamond, whether it's lab-created or earth-created, James Allen has over 200,000 conflict-free stones. Then you pick your ring setting and metal. And if you need some help, they have real-time diamond consultations available, where an expert can walk you through it all. Get 25% off your order at JamesAllen.com, code podcast. That's JamesAllen.com, code podcast.
Hello everyone, welcome in here to the Friday Walkthrough. I'm Carmody alongside Monte Spiller. It's week 4 of college football season. K-State dropped a tough game at Missouri on a 61-yard walk-off field goal. Now they get set to come back home and take on UCF for the Knights' first ever Big 12 game. Before we get into that, we want to let you know we are sponsored by Booth Creek Wagyu. Remember to elevate your tailgate this season with our friends from Booth Creek Wagyu. Their ranch is located just north of Manhattan and proudly raises authentic Wagyu beef from farm to table. Visit their retail locations in Manhattan and Overland Park or online at boothcreekwagyu.com. Well, Monty, last week I don't think went how anybody anticipated. K-State loses to Missouri. I know none of us predicted that. Nobody in the comment section predicted that. K-State fans everywhere were shocked, but wow, that was one heck of a game.
You know, that's the crazy thing about football. You never know what you're going to get. That's what makes it fun. K-State is used to being the underdog, and I felt like we were the favorite going into this game, and I still feel like we're the better team. They had our number that day. I take responsibility for it because I predicted that we would go 11-1 regular season.
This is true.
So this is the one loss. That's the good news. So the loss is out of the way. We're rolling from here on out.
You know, we think back to last year, and we had this similar conversation going into week 1 of the Big 12. K-State comes off of a disappointing non-conference loss. This time it was at home against Tulane. Mm-hmm. Now it's on the road against an opponent who, I mean, the line was only 4, and I know both of us predicted bigger spreads than that, but I mean, Missouri came to play. Credit them. You look at Luther Burden. K-State held him to 6 yards in Manhattan, 114 yards. It was something like 80-something after the catch with 2 touchdowns. He was a man on a mission.
He played well, and not taking anything from him. He's a 5-star guy for a reason. He's probably one of the more prized recruits that Missouri has had in recent history. But on the flip side, too, we both are at the game, and so you can see everything happen. Our DBs took horrible angles at points to make tackles that they normally don't do, and they allowed him to get upfield. And when you allow an explosive receiver to take the angle and get around the corner on you, bad things will happen, and it did.
I specifically remember on that last play, that last touchdown he had, K-State was in man coverage across the board. They ran deep routes everywhere with the intention of, hey, we think Luther Burden can make your guys miss. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what happened. Yeah. Brady Cook pump fake down the field, threw a little bubble route to Luther Burden, and K-State couldn't catch up to him. Credit Missouri's blocking on that. I know that a lot of folks saw at the very end there may or may not have been a hole that didn't get called. Right. Watching it live, I thought it was. They didn't call it. Guy had a great job, maintained his block, and he walks into the end zone. I feel like that is a learning moment for these D-backs. And we said they were going to get tested. I still maintain after watching those guys, that's the best receiving corps K-State might go against all year, besides Texas. And even then, those Missouri receivers were legit, and they had a great test. The D-backs did on Saturday against those guys.
Yeah, Missouri offense, I'm not sure who the offensive coordinator is, but he did a good job of putting together schemes, and he did a lot of things with motion and forced our DBs to be good with their eyes and to readjust after the formation was initially set. And he put their playmakers in space, or he gave them advantages against linebackers or against safeties on one-on-one situations, and that took advantage of it. Now, I'm pretty sure K-State prepared throughout the week, and Missouri showed some things that they hadn't put on tape yet. Mm-hmm. And then when it's early in the season, that's going to happen. The good news is I feel like K-State is still in a good position to move forward. You know, I hate for us to lose, but if you're going to lose early and lose to a non-conference opponent. And if you're going to lose also, it's a Power 5 team on the road, and then take a crazy field goal to win the game. So a loss is a loss, but there's a lot to build on.
I agree with that. And I think K-State getting dropped out of the rankings this week was completely unjustifiable. Right. I understand why it happened. You know, we always sit here and say the national media never seems to give this program very much credit.
True.
Go from 15 to unranked, and Missouri doesn't even get ranked.
Yeah.
How do you beat a top 15 team at home? You're in the SEC. You're undefeated through non-conference play, and you're not ranked. I didn't understand that. I don't think K-State's that far away. I actually think if they beat UCF and some teams towards the bottom of the top 25 lose, K-State should sneak back in there. I still believe this is a top 15 team. There is talent on that team. It just, it wasn't there on Saturday. And
right.
Brady Cook, 356 yards through the air. Credit to him. He beat K-State. We sat here and said, if Brady Cook can beat you, then he can beat you. And he did.
Yep.
So credit K-State, credit Brady Cook for that. He played the game of his life. I want to talk about some of the decisions that the K-State made on offense, specifically before we get into the negative side, how they used Ben Sinnott in that game. Mm-hmm. I was very impressed with how they were able to respond. Ben Sinnott over 70 yards receiving, had one catch for 5 yards the previous week, goes off on Saturday. If there was anything positive to take away, I think it's that Ben Sinnott, even when teams' game plan for him is finding a way to make a difference.
Yeah, I was happy. I'm a big fan of Ben, and I was happy to see him get his hands on the ball and the one play when he hurdled the guy, and it was a highlight. And so being there, it was even more fun when the K-State fans cheered for him. But no, getting him the ball more definitely worked out. And now knowing what we know, moving forward into next week, and we'll talk about it in the next segment, he's going to play even a bigger role coming up next week and moving forward. So it's good to see him get going and to get into more plays. So, yeah.
I was very impressed with some of the goal line scenarios that K-State was dealt with. Felt like I believe it was 3 times where they had touchdowns called back, and they still scored a touchdown every single time. Ironically, the only time they didn't score a touchdown on a goal to go was at the very end when they had to kick a field goal, when they probably needed it the most. But the jump pass from Will Howard to Ben Sinnott was beautiful. There was a play design where K-State sent Phillip Brooks in motion across the formation, got the eyes of the D-backs to flow that way. Everybody ran routes to the right except for Ben Sinnott, who ran to the left, and he was wide open. So credit Colin Klein on that front. How did you assess the offensive line's play? Because in the beginning, I felt like they struggled a little bit, started to figure it out towards the end.
Yeah, we had spurts of where we looked dominant like the team that we thought we would. And in reference to the O-line, they moved the crowd. But then there were times also where there were missed assignments. And also there were times where we got false starts or penalties. And that didn't look like the K-State O-line that we had anticipated. But I feel like going into the third game, and somewhat of a hostile environment, they improved. Not to the point where we expected them to be at Game 3, but they did make improvements. So that's something to be positive about moving forward as well. But you and I both, we not saying that we are impatient, but we expect a lot out of this group. And we want to see these guys dominate. So hopefully they turn that corner and that domination comes out next week.
And they get their starting right tackle back, Christian Duffy, expected to play anywhere from 20 to 30 snaps, according to Chris Kleiman. I have a feeling Duff might talk him in closer to 40. Right. We'll see how that goes, and if it's a close game and they need him. But that's going to help.
Yeah.
That's going to help that offensive line. I thought the defensive line, going back to the defensive side, as we talk about the interior, played outstanding. Yep. They limited Missouri to, again, about 2 yards per rush, except for the long, big run.
Yep.
And I think you can credit that to some of on the linebacking course, specifically Daniel Green. We'll talk about him here in a second. He's playing hurt. He got sucked down inside, and it opened up a giant hole that Cody Schrader was able to run through that set up that Luther Burden touchdown. But I thought the defensive line and the linebackers had a great game. It really just came down to tackling in space.
Yeah, you're right. Guys were in position to make the play. I feel like the scheme wasn't a bad scheme. And like Missouri did a good job. They countered an aggressive K-State defense, and they put plays in at the right time to thinking and scenario percentage-wise when K-State blitz or they're being pressured, and they got behind us. And when we were in position to make a play in open field, we didn't make those tackles. I can imagine Coach Klein had those guys doing several tackling circuits all week, getting ready for this week. But like you said, every team at some point has a letdown. And in K-State, as bad as we played, we were still in the game. So that's something to be positive about as well.
So before we talk about the offensive packages and specifically the guy with long hair who everybody seems to be talking about might be the quarterback this week in Avery Johnson, I want to ask you about the D-backs because I know that some people are concerned about what's going on with Van Malone and Joe Kleinerman's group, but to me, I go back and I watch that game, and I look at the balls that Brady Cook throws, and I look at some of these catches that Mizzou made. The teams that K-State had played had not had the type of quarterbacks who were able to put the ball in between the numbers. They didn't have the tight end who was able to go up along the sideline, get his feet taken out, and still make the catch. I really felt like, for the most part, when K-State was there, they had good coverage. It was just the quarterback making a really good throw, besides the miscommunication, which I think is a whole nother story. But how would you assess the D-backs play?
They were a step away. They understood the assignment, like you said, except for the busted play early. There was obviously miscommunication because the guy was wide open in the end zone. But I feel like they understood what was going on. It was a good game plan, but that level of intensity hadn't quite kicked in yet, because the first two games prior, like you said, the level of competition as quarterback wasn't the same as Cook. And you know what, though? If you look at the silver lining, in case they had a formidable opponent, going into a conference week, that's what you want, because you don't want to play a powder puff or a lesser opponent and then go into conference play the next week thinking you're good, and then end up getting beat first game of conference. You played a good team in Mizzou who is undefeated, and now you know what's going on. And so now you have to, this week in practice, you got to turn it up a little bit. I think DBs played well, not great. We had spurts where we had opportunities, and we didn't finish the play.
Yeah, and I still am high on this group. I go back to Will Lee, junior college transfer. Yeah. No Power 5 experience. Jacob Parrish, a true sophomore, who, by the way, had a very good game.
Yeah, he did.
Marquise Siegel, a guy that a lot of people are talking about this week, changes positions from corner to safety, moves up a level to Power 5, is thrust into that starting role, and it's only his second game after being suspended for the first game. Yep. He's the one, really, who was tasked with guarding Luther Burden. They put him in the slot a lot and really exposed him. So I am not fully on board with, there's major issues in the secondary. Did they play well? I don't think they played well. Right. But that doesn't mean that there's major issues. We've talked about the offensive line. They're starting to figure things out. They're going to figure things out. If there's any coach on the staff to figure it out, I would trust the defensive coordinator and the associate head coach. I'm not worried about the secondary. I'm not. And I don't know. For the people that are giving flack to those guys, I would just say, be patient, because there is a good opportunity that a bounce back week will happen, especially when you look at who's on the schedule in UCF with a backup quarterback and Oklahoma State, who plays 3 backup quarterbacks.
Yeah. I'm not concerned. Like I said, I hate for us to lose, but, to our fan base, it's easy to get frustrated because I wanted to beat Missouri just like the next man. And when we lost to Missouri, that was a bump. That was not a good day. It was one of those things where you're driving home and you're thinking like, man, what are we going to do? But then when you look at the light at the end of the tunnel, we're going to be okay. We will make adjustments. Kleinerman has a great reputation of going back to the drawing board, looking at what we did wrong, correcting it in a short period of time, and getting the boys ready to play the next week. And I guarantee come Saturday night, when Central Florida rolls into town, the Cats will be ready to play.
I agree with that. And before we get into that, we got to go through some injuries. I mentioned Daniel Green.
Right.
Coach Kleiman announced on Tuesday he is out for the season with a torn pec. First of all, prayers out to Daniel Green. What an immense leader for this program.
Absolutely.
He's dedicated his whole entire last 5 years to K-State. So prayers out to Daniel. He is still going to be around the team. Another guy, Jake Clifton, who's been out. They say they won't get him back until after the bye week. And then you got the offensive side, which is where some of the questions lie. Will Howard, potentially questionable for UCF. Trayshawn Ward, doubtful, according to Coach Kleiman. At the quarterback position, we saw Avery Johnson come in and get some reps. He didn't throw the ball, but he ran the ball very well.
Yeah, I guess it's, like I said, and I've said this before, it's a blessing in disguise. I hate that Will is injured. I never wish any injury on any player, especially our Cats. But him being injured in the game and knowing that he's questionable for Saturday's game, that allows Coach Klein and Coach Kleiman to prep Avery, or whoever it may be, I'm guessing it'll be Avery, prep Avery more with the ones this week going into the game if needed, and open up playbook more, because I guarantee they probably didn't have him, they weren't anticipating him playing a whole lot last Saturday, but this week the probability is probably a lot higher, so it allows him to get ready to play if needed, and hopefully he gets opportunity.
For what it's worth, I thought Avery ran the ball extremely well.
He did.
Now, Coach Kleiman said after the game that there was some reads that maybe they didn't get extremely correct, but if you didn't know the play call, you'd have no idea. I mean, the guy springs for 6 yards, 5 yards, puts his team in second and short. I think K-State, if it is indeed Avery Johnson on Saturday, is going to be just fine. We will talk about that and much more in the second half. You're listening to the Friday Walkthrough. We'll be back after this short message.
Your fever is high and the pressure to log in at work is too. But when you finally decide to take care of you, there's Instacart. Just because that one perfect coworker of yours is attending all meetings, camera on while she's sneezing, coughing, and aching, doesn't mean you have to do the same. Take it from us. Trying to stay on top of things will only get you further behind. Instead, get everything from tissues and teas to cough suppressants and comforting soups delivered through Instacart in as fast as 30 minutes. If anyone needs anything, they can just redirect their questions to that one perfect coworker of yours.
Welcome back in here to the Friday Walkthrough. I'm Cole Carmody alongside Monte Spiller. We're sponsored by Booth Creek Wagyu. As we get into this second half, K-State, UCF, don't call them Central Florida. UCF fans get very frustrated when you call UCF Central Florida. The Knights come to Manhattan for the second time in program history. Do you remember the first time?
I don't.
2010, the Storm game, the infamous picture at
is that
Bill's.
It really? Wow, I didn't know. I remember the Storm, but I didn't realize we played Central. Sorry, UCF.
At the time, maybe UCF. Central Florida.
Gotcha. I didn't realize we played UCF.
It was the Storm game with the iconic storm clouds, just prototypical Kansas. Wow. If you've seen that picture, if you haven't, Google it. You'll think it's interesting. I didn't do a shout out. K-State didn't win. You don't get a shout out. But we'll ask for MVP again. So I didn't mention this at the top, but I'm mentioning it now. If you're still watching, comment below who you think is going to be the MVP of Saturday. And if you throw a score prediction in there and get it right, you'll for sure get a shout out. So that is the first order of business. The second order of business is breaking down the Knights. You mentioned it, Chris Dawson, the strength coach, formerly of K-State, now at UCF. There's a tie right there. Right. But that's about all the familiarity there is between these two programs. UCF's first game in the Big 12. They're 3-0. The stats are ridiculous. I'll read them here in a second. But, I mean, you've experienced teams playing in a conference for the first time.
Right.
What are those emotions like?
It's a lot of emotions. It's one of those things where they're not. The good thing for them, they're not alone in joining the conference. So then there are other schools coming in as well. But there's a lot of excitement. Not outside of football, their fan base. How many people from UCF have actually been to Manhattan, Kansas? Not very many. Mm-hmm. So I'm pretty sure there'll be fans traveling up from Florida for the game to come to Manhattan. They don't know what to expect. They're probably thinking Wizard of Oz, which a lot of people do, and that's fine. Once they get here, they find out Manhattan is a rocking place. So, but as a player, I'm pretty sure, and like I said, Coach Dawson has some ties there. I'm pretty sure he's let those guys know somewhat what to expect, the environment, the pride in Manhattan. But as a player, you're excited. You want to leave an impression right away that, we're thankful that we're in this conference, but we're not the whooping boy. We're here to win and play with the big dogs right away. So I guarantee UCF has the same attitude. And
you listen to Gus Malzahn talk at his press conference. Formerly of Auburn, came to K-State in 2014, an infamous game where Auburn barely got out of there with a win. Yeah. He has nothing but good things to say about K-State. Right. He's let his players know how tough it's going to be to play in Manhattan. You throw in the fact that it's a 7 o'clock game, 8 o'clock Eastern time for UCF, so it is a little bit of a time change for them. Don't think that's going to have a major difference, especially considering this same team went out and played a night game in Boise, Idaho. We'll talk about that here in a second. But yeah, I think it's very cool that UCF is finally into this conference. They got a good team. There's no doubt about it. But it'll be fascinating. I've heard that there's a lot of UCF fans that are planning on coming up for the game. I think that's really cool. It's a significant game in the program's history, so it'll be interesting to watch. But let's get into this night team. Like I mentioned, 3-0, 2 blowout wins. Their one close game was a walk-off field goal at Boise State, not the Boise State of old, very similar to K-State. Yeah. 2 pretty easy wins. First game was against Toledo. Third game was against Villanova. They had the Boise game mixed in there. They went on the road and won that game. But just like K-State, they're also dealing with injuries. At the quarterback position, Timmy McClain, South Florida transfer, in at quarterback, it's got to be a challenge to make your first ever road start with your new school as a backup in their first ever new conference game. There's going to be a lot of emotions for him.
Yeah, and not to mention a night game where that makes a difference. As a player, I don't think a lot of people realize how much of a difference, especially with defense side. So I guarantee K-State's defense, understanding that he's a backup quarterback and understanding they have to make up for a lackluster performance last week, they're going to get at it. And I can see a lot of pressure on him and make him very uncomfortable early and often. But, yeah, it should be a great experience. Hopefully our fans come out and they're loud and make him uncomfortable. And it'll be interesting to see how he responds being the starter for the first time this year.
40 points per game for this UCF offense. 299 rush yards per game and 6.4 yards per rush. Those are both first in the nation. Again, we've mentioned the opponents they've played. At the running back position is R.J. Harvey, Johnny Richardson. Timmy McClain is very much a running quarterback. He's a lefty. So I'll ask you about that here in a second. But this team runs the ball. That is what they do. They go up tempo, but they also control the clock. They run the football. K-State doesn't give up rushing yards. They do not give up rushing yards. They are the number one team in the nation when it comes to yards per rush. That matchup in the trenches is going to be something.
It is, and I'm glad you said that because I think about like their first 3 games. Boise State was the known name, I guess. They're not the Boise State of old, but that's the known name. For us, facing a rushing team, we faced Troy 2 weeks ago. And I feel like that Troy offense, that offensive line, that running back game they had, gave us a good test, and we were up for the challenge. I think we'll be the same way coming in against UCF as well. Yeah, you run the ball, but K-State historically has had one of the top run defenses in the Big 12 over the last couple of years just because that's what we do. And I think that's going to be in our favor come Saturday.
Are you worried at all about the loss of Daniel Green? I mean, obviously, he's a captain on the team. You talk to those guys, and they're visibly shaken, and understandably so. I mean, he is a coach on the field. But from a performance perspective, you got Austin Romaine, the true freshman, step in there. Asa Newsom probably going to see some more time, too, another true freshman. But are you worried at all about the loss of production without Daniel Green for this game specifically?
I'm not. And the reason I say that, too, because we've had 3 different backups come in and play significant time early in the game, and they understand what's going on. So with the loss of Daniel Green, somebody's going to be named starter, but there'll be 2 other guys that'll be rotating in addition to another guy that normally wouldn't rotate in, probably will now with Daniel being gone. So we have depth, we have experience, we have guys that play together as well, know what's going on. So I don't think there'll be any drop-off, if any, at all.
I could see Austin Moore even elevating his game a little bit. He seems to be that kind of guy that when the going gets tough, he gets going. Because he is tough.
He's the guy.
And it wouldn't shock me at all for him to have a monster game against UCF. He is so quick, and he evades blocks. It's really incredible to watch. I don't think UCF is going to be prepared for that. He's kind of hard to prepare for. I expect Austin Moore to have a massive game. Staying on that side of the football with a known run team. This is what UCF likes to do. Do we see some more pressure? Do we see some more blitzes? Maybe some corner blitzes. We've seen Willie likes to hit, but we haven't seen him come in on very many corner blitzes. I mean, if you're the defensive coordinator, if you're Joe Kleinerman, you're probably dialing up some pressure this week.
Yeah, absolutely. But we got to keep in mind, too, we can't dial up pressure until we get into 3rd and long. And I think we have to be really good on 1st down and solid on 2nd down. And if we can get them anything 3rd and 5 or more, he's absolutely bringing the pressure because that quarterback, he doesn't have any game experience. And I'm kind of curious to see how the O-line holds up against pressure. And it's one of the things you can dial up a blitz. And if you have mediocre defensive ends or mediocre D tackles, yeah, the blitz is nice, but they don't work as well with those guys. We got guys on the edge that can get after it. So that puts them in sometimes one-on-one matchups as well, along with the blitz. So that quarterback, if he doesn't step up in the pocket or if he doesn't get rid of the ball quick, it could be a long day.
And UCF has yet to see a 3-man front. So that's also something to keep in mind. the center position for UCF has been a position they've struggled with. They had some bad snaps last week. Gus Malzahn talked about it in his press conference. They're just going to pick somebody and roll with it. He didn't announce who, but they've been rotating guys in there. So keep an eye on Uso Seumalo.
Yes.
That's going to be a guy that if the center position struggles, Uso might have a massive game.
You read my mind as you were talking. I thought about Uso, and this is one of those things where he's had good games against quality centers. So if they have a center that struggles, no matter who it is, look for him to do a little more slants, and they probably double him. And if they double him, that's going to open up somebody, and whoever it may be, hopefully they have a big day as well.
Flipping over to the offensive side, we've got to talk about the quarterback position before we talk about anything else. Like we mentioned off the top, Will Howard questionable to play in this game. I personally would be a little surprised if we see Will Howard. They have this week, then they have the bye week, and then they get Oklahoma State. If they think they can win this game without Will Howard, then you start Avery Johnson. And from all indications, it sounds like if Will doesn't go, Avery will get the start, but we still might see some Jake Rubley. If Avery is the guy, what do you expect to see from him on Saturday? I
think they'll start him off slow. He's been great in the run game, the QB run game. Coach Kleiman and Coach Klein have did a good job of getting him comfortable, putting him in positions where he can make simple reads and then just use his natural talent. I feel like the O-line and the offense, and it's no matter who you are, whenever a backup quarterback comes in, everybody games elevates because they want to protect him more because he's not the starter. But when he's well liked as a backup, guys get even more excited about it and they give even more effort, which is crazy, but that's just how it goes. And I think the O-line, the running backs, and the offense as a whole is going to elevate more because they understand that with Will not playing, Avery, although he is young and inexperienced, the dude is a baller. He's a God-given talent, and he's exciting, and then he can do it with his arm and with his legs. So, yeah.
I don't think it's any stretch to say that he is the future of K-State.
I would, yeah.
The next 2 years, this team's probably going to be his. This could be a great litmus test just to kind of see where he's at. And if K-State can find a way to sneak by with a win, you got to be feeling really good, not only about this year, but about the future of the program as well. Looking at this defense for UCF, they run a four-man front. A lot of NFL-type bodies. There's not a lot of long and lengthy guys like Mizzou had Tyrone Hopper. He was an edge guy. He still played with his hand in the ground. UCF is more the typical big, bulky guys at the defensive end position. Their leading tackler, however, is Josh Salazar. He is the leading tackler for the Knights at defensive end. So to me, that just says he's a guy who's able to get off blocks and make some plays at the line of scrimmage. So K-State will have to deal with him. We'll see how Christian Duffy and KT Leviston handle the defensive end. But along with that four-man front, K-State is still going to try and run the ball. It gets a little bit more difficult without Trayshawn Ward. But I really believe DJ Giddens, and with Christian Duffy back at right tackle, DJ Giddens is up for this.
Yeah, I think K-State is going to come out early, no matter who's at quarterback, and they're going to have to set the tone. They're going to have to establish a line of scrimmage and basically impose our will on UCF defensive line and defense as a whole. I feel like we're the better team as a whole, offenses versus our defense. And like you said, they have some guys that are NFL-type bodies to a certain extent, but I feel like as a whole, we run the ball better than a lot of teams in our conference, if not in the nation, when healthy. And I feel like K-State needs to get back to that. And if Avery's a quarterback, we'll start that off early and allow the passing game to open up. But I feel like we have to do a really good job of running the ball, and I think DJ Giddens has something to prove as well. He didn't have a great game last week either, but I feel like he left a lot to be desired last week. So I look forward to him running the ball really hard this coming Saturday.
When DJ gets in a rhythm, he is very good. That's what happened in the first game of the season. We'll see if it can happen this week. I would anticipate 85% of the running back snaps going to DJ Giddens. Chris Kleiman said on Tuesday he listed off some guys, some walk-on types who might see that second running back spot. But to me, this is DJ Giddens' game.
Yeah, I agree, and I think he has the build, the motivation, and the attitude to do that. And the keys were handed to him when Deuce left, and I think Saturday night game he would take over and he'll be ready to roll. I'm excited.
He hasn't had any fumbling issues. Knock on wood, that shouldn't be something that K-State has to worry about. And simply, you look at the statistics for this UCF defense, no forced fumbles this year. Yeah. That's kind of a strange statistic for me. They do have 3 interceptions, but they really don't turn it over at the rate you would expect for a team that's won by a margin that they have. So that could be something. If K-State wins the turnover battle, I think they win this game. So that is definitely something to keep an eye on. First-year defensive coordinator for UCF. Another key thing to watch. They split the play calling duties. That's Addison Williams and David Gibbs, both first-year defensive coordinators, young coaches. There is something to being intimidated in your first ever conference game as a coach. As a player, sure, but as a coach, I really believe that there is a learning curve there.
Yeah, it's easy, and I'll tell you, it's easy to make game plans, and going into the game, you think you have a plan, and the old famous Mike Tyson saying, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. But then in the game situation, how do you make adjustments? How fast do you make adjustments? And K-State is notorious for throwing out 7, 8, 9 different types of formation and making you adjust and running the same play out of 4 or 5 different formations. So how do you adjust as a defensive coordinator, and how rapid can you get it done? Because if you have to wait to halftime to go in and make adjustments, you're down 21 points, and then what? So that'd be interesting to see how they handle the pressure and how they handle a game to this magnitude, especially in a new conference.
As of the day we're recording this, the weather is a little up in the air. They say there might be some rain in the forecast. We'll see what happens, but I still anticipate K-State coming out, even if Will Howard plays. Avery Johnson is going to get in the game. They will use him on the ground.
Yeah.
Look for a lot of RPOs. Look for a lot of power plays. Look for some counters. I think K-State is going to come out early and try and establish the physicality level, because the speed is probably fairly even. UCF has done a great job of recruiting skill guys, but I believe that K-State is going to have the advantage in the trenches. You get Christian Duffy back. If there's one key to this game, it is winning the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, I agree. And I think with both teams' capabilities and both teams' styles, the first and second quarter might go quick because there's going to be a lot of runs. And it might be kind of boring, to be honest with you. And that's okay as long as we come out on top. But, they want to run the ball. That's what they do. That's what they are. And then we want to establish a run just to kind of figure out what our identity is moving forward. And at that point, we can open it up. But I feel like it's going to be a very interesting game the first 2 quarters. And then the second half, hopefully K-State kind of decides this is what we are, this is what we're going to do, and pull away late.
Yeah, and let's get to our predictions as we wrap up the show here. I'll let you go first, Monty. MVP and score prediction.
MVP, well, I have an asterisk. So if Avery plays, he's going to be MVP. If he starts the game. If he doesn't, I'm going with Ben Sinnott.
I think that's all.
Is that fair enough?
I think that's very fair. Right. For me, MVP, I'll go MVP and score right off the bat. I am going to say the MVP of this game is going to be DJ Giddens. Okay. I can see him having a huge game. This is a guy, he's waited for his opportunity. Sure, it was kind of his opportunity week 1, but now he is the lone feature back. This is a guy who was going to take the opportunity and run with it. And for my score, I'll say 31-21 K-State. I think this game will be very close up until the fourth quarter, and I think it might even have to be a late touchdown that K-State scores to kind of pull away. But I do think this will be a nail-biter simply because I think this is going to be an old-school type football game, 4 yards in a cloud of dust. What you got for your score?
I'm going to go with my score I predicted last week for the Mizzou K-State game. I'm going 35-17. Reason being, I feel like K-State has something to prove. Obviously, UCF has something at stake, but I feel like the pressure is on K-State. They were a top 15 team. Now they're out of the top 25. It's a home game, a night game. You're coming off a big loss. Everybody has questions. Not saying the whole nation eyes on you, but the Big 12 nation are eyes on you because you're still the Big 12 champs. And a lot of people put you back in the Big 12 championship this year. So the pressure's on us. So I feel like K-State will have more of a sense of urgency and play a lot more aggressive early and come out with the win. So I say 35-17.
There you have it. Score predictions from Monty and I. Thanks, everybody, so much for listening. Congratulations. You made it to Friday. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy the game wherever you may be. And we'll talk to you next week.
With Blue Link Plus, you can access your Hyundai Tucson Limited remotely. Doors unlocked, temperature set, lost car found.
There it is.
Get complimentary class-leading Blue Link Plus. Call 562-314-4603 for complete details.
Get in on the action with the world's largest sports book right at your fingertips. Circa Sports Iowa is where the pros play. Enjoy the highest limits, lowest takeouts, competitive betting menus, and the best customer service. Now you can download, fund, and bet like a pro from anywhere in Iowa. Circa Sports Iowa. Sports betting the way it should be. Download your new bookie today. Visit circasports.com for details.